So Rabbi Gedalia Fleer started pressing him. He said, well, I don't really know, in any case it was a long time ago and I've forgotten it all. No, I can't tell you.
Would he hear it from again?
Gedalia Fleer heard this from Reb Hirsch Leb Lippel, who was an elder chassid who come over from Ukraine to Yerushalayim, who was there in Israel by 1963 when Gedalia Fleer comes back with this scroll of manuscripts. So before I go on, let me say that Gedalia Fleer evidently handed the manuscript to his teacher, Rabbi Aryeh Rosenfeld, or representatives of Yerushalayim, because a copy was in the possession of Rabbi Aryeh Rosenfeld and it came into the possession of Rabbi Chaim Kramer. And when there were two books that were written in the 1980s about the life of Reb Nachman. One of them was a book that is called Until the Moshiach, that was written by Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan Zatzal, which is a biography of Reb Nachman. It's a kind of biographical diary, day by day, through the Rebbe's life. Any event that is dated in the Rebbe's career is chronologically arranged in Until the Moshiach. It's not a biography in the sense of giving you a sense of the character, personality, and meaning of the Rebbe, but it establishes the chronology. The second work that was produced in the early 1980s was the work I've mentioned, Chayei Moharan, which was translated by me under the title Tzaddik, which is Reb Noson's own anecdotal biography of Reb Nachman with many, many biographical details. And we had at our disposal for the writing of these two books those sections of the manuscript that contained the censored out parts of Chayei Moharan. So there are various extra pieces that were included in the printed English edition which had never been published in Hebrew. However, at that time I did not want to look at the Megillat Starim, because if the Rebbe had said don't publicize it, I didn't feel that it was my place to read it even, and I just never took any practical interest in it besides registering the fact that it existed. Well, now, Rabbi Gedalia Fleer in 1963 had eventually persuaded Reb Hirsch Leib Lippel to divulge the meaning of the document. And this took place one evening when Reb Gedalia Fleer was allowed to come to him with a chaver without a cassette recorder, without any kind of means of tape recording and without any notebook. He was not allowed to take notes or record the event, but according to Reb Gedalia Fleer, that night Reb Aaron Lippel gave him Reb Hirsch Leib Lippel gave him the essential contents of the Megillat Starim. We now fast forward to just a couple of years ago, when it appears that a scholar at the Bar Ilan University by the name of Dr. Tzvi Mark, a scholar in Hasidus, got wind of the fact that there was such a thing as the Megillat Starim and was able to persuade somebody to get him a copy. I know that the original manuscript was photocopied, and I dare say that there was somebody who was already willing to spill the goods or whatever. Dr. Tzvi Mark is a reputed scholar who applied to the manuscript that he received the methods of disencryption of encoded documents that are used typically by intelligence agencies. And about a year and a half to 2 years ago, the Bar Ilan University published his version of the contents of the Megillat Starim, together with some facsimiles of the manuscript, his decipherment, and a general historical introduction in Ivrit. And some of the media took it up. Haaretz wrote a fairly thoroughly researched article about the subject with correct information about the Breslover Hasidim involved. It was properly researched, and the articles do suggest that possibly Moshe Binstock and Gedalia Fleer were involved in the article. I'm not going to say any more than that. Other people also took it up. There is a link to one of the main articles on the feldmoshiach.com for anybody who wants to look it up, by somebody called Micha Odenheimer. Well, now, what does the Megillah say? What does the Megillah say?
That's the next time.
This is the real beauty of this, that it reads like a Reb Nachman story. It has the same phantasmagorical quality as Reb Nachman's story, where Moshiach is a teenager who enchants and captivates the entire world through music and through healing remedies. And here I think is the good news. There were brought down from the Megillas Sorim certain statements that Reb Nosson made about the contents. One of them, it's a known Breslover Vort, that Reb Nachman said that Moshiach is going to take over the whole world without firing a single bullet. This apparently was based upon the Megillat Starim. Another is that the war of Gog and Magog is not intended to be understood as a classic military clash between armies, but it is a war of ideology. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of Dr. Zvi Mark's interpretation of the Megillat Starim. What I would prefer to do is to just mention a few points that to my mind show convincingly that this interpretation is completely in keeping with the Rabbi Nachman we know from his seminal Torah work, Likutei Moharan, and particularly from his stories. And I'm going to in a moment cite examples of where I think we can see the precursor of this concept of Mashiach in Rabbi Nachman's stories.
Based on your own reading and study, or of what Mark did?
It's based on my own reading and study, on the basis of having read the picture that Dr. Mark Zvi presents. I mean, it reads mamish like one of the Rebbe's stories with this young man who is drawing people charismatically, and he's giving melodies and remedies, and it's about his marriage and about his settling in Yerushalayim and children. It's a very strange thing. Now, if we're talking about his marriage and his children, let's bear in mind that in Yechezkel, chapters 40 to 48, the closing chapters of Ezekiel, which speak about the third temple, chapters 40 onwards, and then speak about the divide of the land of Israel going from Nachal Mitzrayim all the way up to Chalab, and further north up to Antiochia, into between the 12 tribes. It speaks about the central part where the temple is, and the portion of the king, priest, namely the Moshiach, is, and it says there specifically that this will be inherited by his sons. So there's in the whole concept of Moshiach in Yechezkel, there's the concept of Moshiach's family and of the continuation. Nachman himself said the Moshiach will die. We're not going to come to Tchias HaMesim with Moshiach. That's a later stage. And so Moshiach is the one who gathers in Israel and builds the temple after Gog and Magog.